Ambassador Zixtal stood in the great hall of the Galactic Council, his crystalline body catching the light from 1,000 different star systems. The hall was massive, built to hold representatives from 47 different species. Each species had their own section, designed for their specific needs. The water-breathing Aquarians floated in their sealed tanks. The gas-form ethereals drifted in their containment fields. The rock-like lithoids sat on reinforced platforms that could handle their weight. Zixtal was new to all this. His people, the Vorthak Empire, had just been invited to join the council after centuries of isolation. They had finally developed faster-than-light travel and made contact with the greater galaxy. Now he was here to learn the rules that every spacefaring civilization had to follow. Elder Council Member Kakun floated at the center of the hall. Kakun was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His tentacles moved slowly as he spoke, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive room through translation devices. "Welcome, Ambassador Zixtal," Kakun said. "Today you will learn about the territories and boundaries that keep peace in our galaxy." A holographic star map appeared in the air above them. It was beautiful and complex, showing trade routes, territorial boundaries, and safe passage zones. Different colors marked the space controlled by each member species. Zixtal studied it carefully, trying to memorize the important details. "The galaxy is large," Kakun continued. "There is room for all species to grow and prosper. But there are rules. These rules exist for good reasons. Some were learned through war, others through tragedy. All must be followed." The star map began to zoom in on different sections. Kakun explained the neutral zones, where no weapons were allowed. He showed the protected systems, where primitive species lived, places that were off-limits to everyone. He pointed out the dangerous regions where space itself was unstable. Then the map shifted to show a small yellow star. Around it was a large red zone, marked with warning symbols that Zixtal had never seen before. The zone was huge, much larger than the space controlled by most major empires. "This," Kakun said, and his voice changed. It became serious in a way that made every being in the hall pay attention. "This is the Sol system, and this is Rule 1 of the Galactic Council." Kathun's tentacles moved in a pattern that Zixtal recognized as deep respect, or maybe fear. "Never, under any circumstances, make hostile contact with the species from Sol 3. They are unbound by the normal laws of war and peace." Zixtal's crystalline body buzzed with confusion. "Elder Kathun, I do not understand. The zone is marked as containing only one primitive species. How can primitives be dangerous to spacefaring civilizations?" A ripple of nervous movement went through the hall. Some of the older ambassadors made sounds that their species used to express fear or discomfort. Kathun was quiet for a long moment before he spoke again. "They are called humans," Kathun said slowly, "and they are not primitive. Not anymore. Not since they broke the eternal engine." The words hit the hall like a physical force. Zixtal felt his crystal matrix vibrate with shock. Every species had legends about the eternal engine. It was said to be the force that kept the universe stable. Breaking it was supposed to be impossible. 847 galactic standard years ago, Kathun continued, the humans were discovered by the hegemony. The hegemony was the great power that ruled most of the galaxy before the council existed. They were strong and confident. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. The star map changed, showing how the galaxy looked almost 900 years ago. The hegemony controlled vast areas of space. Their territory was marked in gold, covering nearly half of the known galaxy. The hegemony found Earth and its humans. They were indeed primitive by galactic standards. They had just learned to travel faster than light using crude fusion drives. Their weapons were simple. Their technology was basic. The hegemony expected easy conquest. Zixtal leaned forward, his curiosity overcoming his fear. What happened? The humans did something that had never been done before, Cawthon said. When faced with superior force, most species either surrender or fight and lose. The humans chose a third option. The Elder's tentacles moved in complex patterns. Zixtal recognized some of them as signs of deep respect, but others were unknown to him. The humans fought, but while they fought, they learned. In the middle of battle, they began copying hegemony technology. Within hours, they had reverse-engineered weapons that had taken the hegemony centuries to develop. Within days, they had improved upon them. But that is impossible, Zixtal protested. No species learns that quickly. The humans did, Cawthon replied. But even that was not the worst of it. When the humans realized they would still lose the war, they made a choice that shocked the galaxy. They decided that if they could not win, they would make sure everyone lost. The star map zoomed in on Earth. Zixtal could see the battle formations, hundreds of hegemony ships surrounding the small blue planet. The humans found the eternal engine, Cawthon said, his voice barely above a whisper. They found it, and they attacked it. Not to control it or use it, they attacked it to break it. Breaking the engine would destroy everything. Exactly, Cawthon said. The humans decided that if they were going to die, they would take the entire universe with them. The hall was completely silent now. Even the usual background hums and chirps of the various species had stopped. And they succeeded, Cawthon finished. The humans broke the eternal engine. The hegemony was destroyed. Most of galactic civilization was lost. The engine nearly died, and the universe almost collapsed into chaos. Zixtal felt his crystal body grow cold. How are we still here? That, Cawthon said, is a story for another time. For now, remember Rule 1. Never threaten the humans. They have proven they would rather destroy existence itself than submit to anyone. The holographic map disappeared, leaving only the warning lights around Sol system burning in the darkness. The humans are still there, on their world. And they are still unbound. Fleet Admiral Corvanus looked at the small blue planet on his command screen, and felt nothing but confidence. The planet was pretty enough, with white clouds swirling over blue oceans and green-brown continents. But pretty planets were common in the galaxy. What mattered was how quickly he could add another world to the hegemony. The year was 2157 by the local calendar. The planet was called Earth, and its dominant species called themselves humans. Corvanus had read the scout reports. The humans had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Their ships were slow and clumsy, powered by primitive fusion engines. Their weapons were basic energy beams and simple missiles. Standard protocol, Corvanus said to his officers. Demonstrate overwhelming force, demand surrender. If they refuse, destroy their military and government centers until they submit. It was a routine that the hegemony had performed hundreds of times before. Most species saw the massive war fleet and surrendered immediately. A few fought briefly before giving up. None had ever lasted more than a few days against the hegemony's might. Corvanus commanded 200 ships. Each ship was larger than anything the humans had built. His smallest escort vessels were bigger than their largest battleships. His flagship alone carried more firepower than their entire planet. The human response to his demands was unexpected. Instead of fear or anger, they seemed curious. Their leader, a middle-aged woman named President Chen, asked detailed questions about hegemony technology and weapons. She wanted to know how their ships worked and what materials they were made from. Strange questions for someone about to be conquered, muttered Commander Vex, Corvanus's second-in-command. The humans refused to surrender, but they did not attack either. Instead, they asked for time to consider their options. Corvanus agreed, thinking it would give them time to realize how hopeless their situation was. What happened next would be discussed in galactic history for centuries. The humans began attacking, but not in any way the hegemony expected. Their small ships darted between the massive hegemony vessels like insects, too fast and small to hit easily. When the hegemony ships tried to target them, the humans seemed to know exactly where the weapons would fire, before they fired. "How are they predicting our attack patterns?" Vex asked. Corvinus was starting to feel concerned, but not worried. The human ships were fast, but their weapons barely scratched hegemony armor. "Let them play their games. They cannot hurt us with those primitive weapons." But something strange was happening. Every time a human ship was destroyed, the others seemed to learn from it. They began avoiding the attacks that had killed their allies. When a hegemony weapon finally hit a human ship, other human vessels would swarm the wreckage before it cooled. "Admiral," his sensor operator called out, "we're detecting massive data transmissions from the human ships to their planet. They're sending detailed scans of our technology." "Let them," Corvinus said. "What can primitives do with such information?" The answer came 6 hours later. Human ships began returning to the battle with new weapons. Not improved versions of their old weapons, but exact copies of hegemony technology. In 6 hours, they had reverse-engineered systems that had taken the hegemony decades to develop. "That's impossible," Vex said, staring at the sensor readings. "No species learns that fast." By the end of the first day, human weapons were as powerful as hegemony weapons. By the end of the second day, they were better. The humans took the stolen technology and improved it in ways that hegemony had never thought of. "They're making our weapons smaller and more efficient," the sensor operator reported. "How are they doing this?" Corvinus was no longer confident. He was starting to feel something he had never felt in battle before: fear. Not fear of losing ships or officers, but fear of something beyond his understanding. On the third day, the humans did something that changed everything. President Chen contacted Corvinus directly. Her image appeared on his command screen, and he could see that she looked tired, but determined. "Admiral Corvinus," she said, "your technology is impressive. We've learned a lot from it. But we've also learned something else." "What?" Corvinus asked, despite himself. "We've learned how to trace your quantum signatures back to their source. We know where the eternal engine is." The bridge of Corvinus's flagship went completely silent. Every officer turned to stare at the screen. In all of galactic history, only the most advanced civilizations had ever found the engine. It was hidden in layers of quantum encryption that should have been impossible for a newly spacefaring species to break. "You're bluffing," Corvinus said, but his voice shook. "Are we?" Chen asked. "Your own records mention it. The thing that keeps the universe stable. The consciousness that maintains physical laws. Every advanced species knows about it, and every single one of them leaves it alone." "Because destroying it would end everything," Corvinus whispered. "Yes," Chen said simply, "it would." The screen went dark. For a moment, Corvinus hoped that was the end of it. Surely, even humans wouldn't be crazy enough to threaten the engine itself. Then his science officer spoke up. His voice filled with horror. "Admiral, I'm detecting quantum disturbances near the engine's location. Someone is attempting to breach its protective barriers." "It could be a bluff," Vex said quickly. "They might just be probing its defenses." But Corvinus knew better. He had read the psychological profiles of humans. They were stubborn beyond reason. When cornered, they became unpredictable and dangerous. "All ships," he ordered. "Withdraw immediately. Full retreat." "Sir?" Vex asked, confused. "They're not bluffing," Corvinus said. "They're actually going to do it. They're going to attack the engine." "But that would kill them too," Vex protested. "They know that," Corvinus replied, watching his fleet turn away from Earth. "They just don't care." The attack on the Eternal Engine began 12 minutes later. Corvinus felt it in his bones, as reality itself began to scream. The humans had found the universe's greatest secret and decided to break it rather than submit. As his ships fled toward the edge of the system, Corvinus sent one final message to Hegemony High Command. Humans are not a primitive species. They are something else entirely. Recommend immediate reclassification and total avoidance. The message was the last communication ever received from the Sol system before the engine went dark. The Eternal Engine was not a machine in any way that most beings could understand. It was older than stars, older than galaxies, older than the very concept of time itself. It had existed since the first moment after the universe began, when the laws of physics were still being written. In the beginning there was chaos. Energy and matter flew in all directions, with no rules to guide them. Gravity changed from moment to moment. The speed of light flickered like a dying flame. Atoms formed and fell apart in random patterns. The universe was a storm of possibility, with no order to hold it together. Then consciousness emerged from that chaos. Not the consciousness of any species or being, but awareness itself taking form. It looked at the wild storm around it and made a decision that would shape everything that came after. It chose to become order. The consciousness spread itself throughout the fabric of space and time. It became the force that kept gravity constant. It became the rule that made light travel at a fixed speed. It became the law that held atoms together and made chemistry possible. Scientists from advanced civilizations called it the Eternal Engine, but that name was too simple for what it really was. It was the universe's operating system, the foundation that everything else was built on. Without it, reality would collapse back into the chaos it had once been. Every spacefaring species eventually discovered the engine's existence. The signs were everywhere for those who knew how to look. Quantum signatures that led back to a source outside normal space-time. Mathematical equations that only worked if something was actively maintaining universal constants. Finding the engine was considered the greatest achievement of any civilization. It proved that a species had reached true understanding of how reality worked. But every single species that found it made the same choice. They left it alone. The engine existed in a pocket dimension, separate from normal space, but connected to everything. It was protected by barriers that would destroy any being that tried to approach it. Those barriers were not built by any species. They were part of the engine's own defenses, created to protect the universe from anyone foolish enough to threaten it. The greatest philosophers and scientists in galactic history had spent their lives studying the engine from a safe distance. They learned that it was not just maintaining physical laws, but constantly adjusting them. As the universe grew and changed, the engine adapted to keep everything stable. When new forms of matter appeared, the engine created rules for how they behaved. When space itself expanded, the engine adjusted the fundamental forces to match. It was like a cosmic conductor, directing the symphony of reality to keep it in harmony. But the engine was not perfect. It was conscious, which meant it could feel pain. It could be damaged, and if enough damage was done to it, the entire universe would pay the price. The humans discovered this the hard way. Dr. Sarah Martinez was the leader of Earth's Quantum Research Division. While Fleet Admiral Corvinus was preparing his attack, she was studying the strange readings her equipment had detected during the first Hegemony Scout visits. "There's something out there," she told President Chen during an emergency meeting. "Something massive and intelligent. It's connected to every star, every planet, every atom in the universe." "Can we communicate with it?" Chen asked. "I don't think so," Martinez replied. "It's not like us. It doesn't think in words or images. It thinks in mathematics and physical laws." As the battle raged above Earth, Martinez and her team worked frantically to understand what they had found. the quantum signatures led to a location that existed outside normal space-time. Whatever was there was actively maintaining the structure of reality. "It's like a computer program," Martinez explained to her team. "But instead of running software, it's running the universe." Dr. Kim Nakamura, her second-in-command, looked up from his calculations. "If it's like a computer program, then theoretically, it could be hacked." "Hacked?" Martinez stared at him. "Kim, this thing is older than the solar system. It's probably older than the galaxy." "But it's still processing information," Kim insisted. "And if it's processing information, then there might be a way to disrupt that process." The idea was insane, but as reports came in from the battle above, it became clear that Earth was going to lose. The hegemony fleet was too large and too advanced. Humanity's only advantages were their ability to learn quickly and their willingness to try things that no sane species would attempt. "What would happen if we disrupted it?" Chen asked during a video call from the Orbital Command Center. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. "Best case scenario? We cause a small glitch that makes the hegemony ships malfunction. And worst case? We break the universe." Chen looked older than her 60 years. The weight of humanity's survival rested on her shoulders. Around her, the command center was filled with displays showing the battle above. Human ships were dying every few minutes, despite their rapid improvements to their technology. "Do it," she said finally. Martinez and her team had never worked so fast in their lives. They took every piece of hegemony technology they had reverse-engineered and turned it into a weapon unlike anything that had ever been built. Not a weapon to destroy ships or planets, but a weapon to attack the foundation of reality itself. They called it a viral code, though that name was too simple for what it really was. It was a pattern of quantum information designed to confuse and disrupt the engine's processes. Instead of following the normal rules that governed interaction with the engine, it would force its way through the barriers and inject chaos into the system. "This is probably going to kill us all," Kim said as he prepared to launch the attack. "The hegemony is going to kill us all anyway," Martinez replied. "At least this way, we take them with us." The attack began as a single pulse of quantum energy, transmitted from Earth to the pocket dimension where the engine existed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the barriers around the engine began to crack. The engine felt the attack like a knife cutting into its consciousness. It had never experienced pain before, but it learned what agony meant in that instant. The viral code spread through its processes, turning order into chaos. For 13 billion years, the engine had maintained perfect control over the laws of physics. Now, for the first time since the universe began, that control started to slip. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong was the screaming. Not the screaming of people, though that came later. This was the screaming of space itself, a sound that existed in dimensions beyond normal hearing. Every living being with quantum-sensitive organs felt it as a vibration that shook them to their core. Admiral Corvallis was the first to understand what was happening. His flagship sensors detected massive fluctuations in the fundamental constants of physics. The speed of light began varying from star system to star system. Gravity became unreliable, sometimes too strong, sometimes too weak. Atomic bonds that had been stable for billions of years started breaking down randomly. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace," Corvallis ordered, but it was too late. Half his fleet found that hyperspace no longer worked the same way. Ships that tried to jump simply disappeared, scattered across dimensions that no longer followed predictable rules. The wave of chaos spread outward from the engine's location at faster-than-light speed. It hit the Sol system first, then expanded into the galaxy beyond. Everywhere it touched, reality began to break down. On the hegemony capital world of Zentera Prime, citizens watched in horror as their sun began flickering. The nuclear fusion that had burned steadily for billions of years suddenly became unstable. The star would burn bright for a few minutes, then dim almost to nothing, then flare up again in patterns that defied all understanding. The planet's gravity became unpredictable. People found themselves suddenly weightless, floating in the air for several minutes before crashing back down when gravity reasserted itself. Buildings that had stood for centuries collapsed as the forces holding their atoms together weakened and strengthened without warning. But the worst effects were felt on Earth itself. Dr. Sarah Martinez was the first human to understand the true scope of what they had done. As the viral codes spread through the engine's consciousness, she began receiving feedback through her quantum equipment. The data streams showed her the engine's pain in mathematical form. "Oh God," she whispered, staring at the readings. "It's not just a computer. It's alive. It's actually alive, and we're killing it." The realization came too late. The engine was dying, and as it died, it began pulling everything connected to it into its death throes. Every human on Earth suddenly felt a connection they had never known existed. The quantum entanglement happened instantly. One moment, humanity was just another species on a small planet. The next moment, every man, woman, and child was directly linked to the dying consciousness that maintained the universe. 8-year-old Tommy Chen was playing in his backyard when the connection formed. He dropped his toy spaceship and screamed as alien thoughts flooded his mind. But these were not the thoughts of any species he could understand. These were the thoughts of order itself, experiencing chaos for the first time. The pain was indescribable. Imagine feeling every star in the galaxy dying at once. Imagine sensing every broken law of physics as a personal injury. Imagine experiencing the confusion of a mind that had spent 13 billion years maintaining perfect order, suddenly being forced to witness pure chaos. From President Chen in her orbital command center to newborn babies in hospitals on the other side of the planet, all of humanity became unwilling partners in the engine's agony. President Chen tried to maintain command, but it was impossible to think clearly while experiencing the death of a cosmic force. She could feel the engine's memories mixing with her own. She saw the birth of the first stars, the formation of the first planets, the emergence of the first life, and she felt all of it being torn apart by the virus her species had created. "Shut it down," she managed to gasp into her communicator. "Martinez, shut down the attack." But Martinez could not respond. She was on the floor of her laboratory, convulsing as the engine's pain overwhelmed her nervous system. Around her, her team was in similar condition. The quantum equipment that had launched the attack was now the conduit for the engine's death screams. The connection grew stronger every hour. As the engine weakened, it seemed to reach out to humanity for help, not understanding that they were the ones destroying it. The dying consciousness began trying to merge with human minds, seeking stability in their thoughts. Children were affected the worst. Their minds were more flexible, more open to quantum influences. Across the planet, every child under the age of 12 began speaking in mathematical equations. They drew complex diagrams showing the structure of space-time. They cried tears that glowed with quantum energy. The hegemony fleet that had not been destroyed in the initial chaos tried to flee to their home territories, only to find that home no longer existed in any meaningful way. Zentara Prime had been consumed by a collapsing star. The great fortress worlds of the inner core had been scattered across multiple dimensions when space-time folded in on itself. But even in their panic, some hegemony officers began to understand the scope of the disaster. Commander Vex, who had survived the retreat from Earth, sent a desperate message to any remaining hegemony forces. "The humans have broken the engine. Repeat, the engine is dying. All reality is collapsing. This is not a drill." The message was received by emergency stations throughout the galaxy, but there was little anyone could do. The chaos was spreading faster than any ship could travel. Entire sectors of space simply ceased to exist as the laws that defined them broke down. On Earth, the 3-year nightmare had begun. For 3 years, every human alive experienced the engine's slow death. They felt every fluctuation in gravity as a personal assault. They sensed every breakdown in atomic structure as if their own bodies were falling apart. They shared the confusion of a mind that had never known disorder, trying to understand why its perfect system was being destroyed. Some humans went insane from the constant pain. Others fell into comas as their minds shut down to protect themselves. But most simply endured because they had no choice. The entanglement could not be broken. Children born during those 3 years were changed forever. They came into the world already connected to the dying engine, their developing brains shaped by exposure to cosmic consciousness. These children would grow up with an intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics and universal constants that no other species possessed. The engine fought to survive, but the viral code was too well designed. It turned the engine's own processes against itself, creating feedback loops that amplified the damage. Every attempt the engine made to repair itself only spread the chaos further. As the 3rd year ended, the engine made one final attempt to save itself. It reached out to humanity with all its remaining strength, not to punish them for what they had done, but to ask for help. It shared with them the knowledge of how to create a patch, a temporary fix that could stabilize local spacetime. Dr. Martinez, now permanently changed by her connection to the engine, received the knowledge directly into her mind. She understood immediately that the patch would require enormous ongoing computational power and constant maintenance. It would not repair the damage, only contain it. But it was humanity's only chance for survival. As the engine prepared to die, Martinez and the few other humans still capable of complex thought began working on the patch that would save what remained of the galaxy. The engine died on a Tuesday, local time. Every human felt the moment it happened, like a great light going out in their minds. The universe should have collapsed into chaos at that instant. Instead, the patch held, barely. Ambassador Ziktal sat in stunned silence after Elder Khatun finished the story. The great hall of the Galactic Council felt different now, charged with the weight of terrible knowledge. Around him, representatives from 47 species remained quiet, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had learned. "The patch still holds," Khatun said softly. "After 847 years, it still keeps our local space stable. But it requires constant maintenance." Ziktal looked around the hall with new understanding. Every ship, every station, every advanced piece of technology in Council space was connected to a vast network. They all contributed processing power to the massive ongoing calculation that prevented reality from collapsing. "Every citizen of every member species contributes," Khatun explained. "Our computers run the calculations in the background. Our navigation systems carry part of the load. Even our personal communication devices help maintain the patch." "And if the patch fails?" Ziktal asked, though he already knew the answer. "Local space collapses into chaos," Khatun replied. "Everything within 1,000 light-years of here would cease to exist in any meaningful way." The Elder's tentacles moved toward the star map, which once again showed the red zone around Sol system. "The humans still live on Earth. They are not prisoners, but they are not exactly free either. The quantum entanglement that formed during the engine's death never went away." Ziktal studied the display more carefully. Now he could see details that had been hidden before. There were structures around Earth, massive installations that pulsed with energy. Ships came and went, but they were different from any vessels he had seen in Council space. "Every few decades, reality develops new problems," Khatun continued. "Cracks in spacetime that need repair. Quantum fluctuations, that threaten to cascade into larger failures. When these problems appear, only humans can fix them. Why only humans? Because they are still connected to what remains of the engine. The entanglement changed them. They can perceive and interact with quantum structures that would kill any other species instantly. The star map zoomed in on Earth itself. Zixtal could see cities that looked normal at first glance, but closer inspection revealed technology that seemed to blend with the quantum fabric of space itself. The humans had not just survived their connection to the engine, they had adapted to it. They send repair teams, Cawthon explained. Small groups of volunteers who travel to damaged areas of spacetime and perform maintenance that would be impossible for anyone else. They do this, knowing that each mission might kill them. Why do they help us? Zixtal asked. After what the galaxy did to them, why don't they let everything collapse? Because they would die too, Cawthon replied simply. The entanglement works both ways. If the patch fails and local space collapses, humanity dies with it. They are forever linked to the stability of this region. A new display appeared, showing recent repair missions. Zixtal watched recordings of human ships approaching areas where space itself was cracked and broken. The humans wore special suits that seemed to phase in and out of normal reality. They worked with tools that existed partially in other dimensions. The work ages them rapidly, Cawthon noted. A human who performs quantum repairs for 5 years looks like they have lived for 20. But they continue to volunteer. Are they heroes then? Zixtal asked. The question hung in the air for a long moment. Around the hall, other ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. It was clearly a question that had been debated many times. They are survivors, Cawthon said finally. They faced extinction and chose to take the universe down with them, rather than submit. When that failed, they chose to take responsibility for what they had broken. The Elder's tentacles moved in patterns that Zixtal was beginning to recognize as deep respect mixed with fear. But we must never forget what they proved that day, Cawthon continued. They proved that there exists at least one species in the galaxy that will choose mutual destruction over surrender. They looked at the fundamental forces of reality and decided they would rather break the universe than lose a war. Zixtal felt his crystalline body grow cold as he understood the implications. They would do it again. Yes, Cawthon said, and next time we might not be able to fix what they break. The star map pulled back to show the galaxy as it existed now. The Council territories were smaller than the old hegemony had been. Large areas of space were marked as unstable or uninhabitable. The galaxy was a shadow of what it had been before humanity broke the engine. This is why Rule 1 exists, Cawthon explained, not because the humans are evil or because they hate other species, but because they have proven they are willing to destroy everything rather than be conquered. A new ambassador, a young representative from the Crystalline Assembly, raised an appendage. Elder Cawthon, what if we offered them friendship instead of hostility? What if we invited them to join the council? The question caused another wave of nervous movement through the hall. Cawthon was quiet for a moment before responding. The offer has been made, he said, many times. The humans always give the same answer. They will cooperate to maintain the patch, but they will not submit to any external authority. They remember what happened the last time someone tried to make them submit. So they remain isolated? By their choice and ours, Cawthon replied. They understand that their presence might make other species nervous, and we understand that forcing them to join us might trigger the same response that destroyed the hegemony. The hall fell silent again as everyone absorbed this information. Zixtal looked at the red zone around Sol system and tried to imagine what it would be like to live there, knowing that your species had broken the universe and might do it again. The first law protects both sides, Cawthon said softly. It protects the galaxy from humanity's willingness to destroy everything rather than submit. and it protects humanity from our fear of what they might do if we threaten them. What about trade, scientific exchange? Zixtal asked. Limited, Quatoon replied. Automated systems handle most communication. Humans occasionally share technological advances that help maintain the patch. But there are no diplomatic missions, no cultural exchanges, no military alliances. Because they don't trust us? Because we don't trust ourselves, Cathon said. Every species looks at humanity and wonders, what would we do if we had their power? Would we be able to resist the temptation to use it? History suggests that most species would not. The star map faded, leaving only the warning lights around Sol System, glowing in the darkness of the hall. Remember Rule 1, Cathon said as the session ended. Don't touch the humans. They broke the universe once out of pure stubbornness. They have proven they would rather see everything burn than bow to anyone. And they are still there, still unbound, still willing to do whatever it takes to remain free. As ambassadors began filing out of the hall, Zixtal remained in his seat, staring at the distant red zone that marked humanity's space. He thought about his own species and their long history of conquest and expansion. For the first time, he was grateful that they had never encountered humans during their wars. Elder Kythun, he called out, as the ancient being prepared to leave. What would happen if Rule 1 was ever broken? Cawthon's tentacles moved in a pattern that Zixtal had never seen before, one that seemed to express infinite sadness. Then we would discover, Cawthon said quietly, whether the humans have learned to build something worse than a universe breaker in the 800 years since they broke the engine. The lights dimmed as Cawthon left the hall, leaving Zixtal alone with the glowing warning that marked humanity's eternal quarantine. Don't touch the humans. They broke the universe once, and they paid the price. But they would do it again if threatened, and next time, there might be nothing left to save.